Can a company legally fire someone for no reason? This is a question you probably have asked yourself over and over. Most people never think they'll get fired. Seriously, almost everyone believes it happens to other people until one random day, their manager suddenly says, "Can we talk for a minute?" And somehow, deep down, they already know something is wrong. Maybe it's the strange tone in the manager's voice. Maybe it's the sudden HR meeting. Maybe coworkers started acting differently days earlier. Or maybe the employee simply feels that uncomfortable tension people notice before bad news arrives. Then it happens. A person walks into work with a job and walks out unemployed. And honestly, for many Americans, getting fired is one of the most emotionally painful experiences adulthood can bring. Not only because of money, but because of humiliation, fear, uncertainty, and the feeling that life suddenly became unstable overnight. Today, we're going to talk about how people actually get fired in America, what employers can legally do, when a firing may become illegal, and what workers should do immediately after losing a job. And we're going to explain everything in very simple words, because honestly, a lot of Americans go through workplace situations without fully understanding their rights. This video is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice. Employment laws vary depending on the state and situation. Speak with a licensed attorney for legal help. Let's start with something important. A lot of people imagine getting fired as one dramatic moment. Maybe yelling, maybe security escorts someone out, maybe a huge argument. But in real life, most firings happen quietly, very quietly. Sometimes it's just a short meeting, a calm HR conversation, an email, a phone call, or a message saying your services are no longer needed. And within minutes, someone's income disappears. Now, one of the biggest questions people ask is, can a company legally fire someone for no reason? And surprisingly, in many US states, the answer is often yes, because most employment in America works under something called at-will employment. Now, this legal term sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. It basically means in many situations, employers can fire workers at almost any time without giving a detailed reason. That shocks many people because a lot of workers believe if I work hard and follow the rules, my job is safe. But legally, that's not always true. A company may fire someone because business slowed down, profits dropped, management changed, budgets were reduced. The employer simply wanted someone else. And yes, sometimes workers get fired even when they thought they were doing fine. Now let's talk about common reasons people lose jobs. One major reason is attendance problems, showing up late repeatedly, missing shifts often, calling in sick too much without proper communication. Now life happens, people get sick, cars break down, family emergencies happen. But over time, employers may see repeated attendance problems as unreliable behavior, and eventually, someone may lose their job over it. Another common reason is workplace conflict, arguments with coworkers, disrespect toward management, creating tension inside the workplace. Now here's the thing many people forget. Companies care a lot about workplace environment. Even if someone is talented, if they constantly create drama or tension, employers may eventually decide they're no longer worth keeping. Then there's performance issues. This is one of the most common reasons people get fired. Maybe deadlines are missed repeatedly. Maybe mistakes keep happening. Maybe productivity drops. Or maybe the company simply feels another employee performs better. Now, honestly, this is where workplace situations can become emotionally painful, because sometimes workers genuinely believe they're doing well, until the company suddenly says otherwise. And many employees feel blindsided, especially when managers never clearly communicated problems earlier. Now let's talk about layoffs, because not all job losses happen because someone did something wrong. Sometimes companies simply cut jobs. Maybe the economy slows down. Maybe sales drop. Maybe technology replaces positions. Maybe the company is struggling financially, and suddenly hundreds or even thousands of workers lose jobs at the same time. This happens across America every year. And honestly, layoffs can feel deeply unfair because people lose income through no fault of their own. Now, here's where things become legally important. Even though employers often have broad firing power under at-will employment, there are still things they generally cannot legally do. For example, in many situations, employers cannot fire someone because of race, religion, gender, pregnancy, disability, national origin, age in certain situations. That may become illegal discrimination, and discrimination cases can become very serious legally. Now, imagine this situation. An employee reports sexual harassment. A few days later, that employee suddenly gets fired. Now, the firing may raise serious legal questions because employers generally cannot legally punish workers for certain protected actions. This is called retaliation. And honestly, retaliation cases happen more often than many people realize. Another example is whistleblowing. Imagine a worker reports unsafe conditions, fraud, illegal company activity, workplace violations, then suddenly loses their job afterwards. Again, that can create legal problems for employers. Now, another thing workers often ask is, can my boss fire me over social media? And surprisingly, sometimes yes. People have lost jobs over offensive posts, insulting customers online, leaking company information, publicly attacking coworkers. Now, some workers immediately say, but it's my personal account. And while that may feel true emotionally, employers sometimes argue that online behavior still affects the company's reputation. Now, the laws around social media and employment are complicated and can vary depending on the state, the company, the industry, workplace policies. But the important thing is this. A lot of workers underestimate how much employers monitor public online behavior. Now, let's talk about what many people experience emotionally after being fired, because honestly, this part rarely gets discussed enough. Some people feel embarrassed, others feel angry, others immediately panic financially. Imagine driving home after losing your job, trying to figure out how to pay rent, how to buy groceries, how to explain the situation to your family, and how long savings will last. That pressure can become overwhelming very quickly, especially because many Americans already live paycheck to paycheck. Now, here's something extremely important. If someone believes they were fired illegally, they should start documenting things immediately. Things like emails, messages, performance reviews, written warnings, HR conversations, witness names, because documentation becomes very important during workplace disputes. Another thing many workers should consider is unemployment benefits. Some fired employees may still qualify, depending on the reason for termination, state laws, employment history. And honestly, many people don't even realize they may qualify. Now, this doesn't mean every firing becomes a lawsuit, not even close. Sometimes companies legally fire workers. Sometimes communication simply breaks down. Sometimes businesses make cold financial decisions. And sometimes workers unfortunately lose jobs unfairly without clear legal protection. That's the hard reality of modern employment. Now, here's the good news. Getting fired does not automatically ruin someone's future. In fact, many successful people have been fired before. Some later found better jobs, healthier workplaces, higher salaries, more stable careers, new business opportunities. But during the moment itself, job loss can feel devastating emotionally. And that's why understanding workplace laws matters, because knowledge helps people respond calmly instead of making panic decisions during stressful situations. And honestly, a lot of Americans spend years working without fully understanding how vulnerable employment can sometimes be. Now, after someone gets fired, most people immediately focus on one thing. How am I going to survive financially? And honestly, that fear is understandable, because losing a job can feel like the ground suddenly disappeared underneath someone's feet. One moment, life feels normal. The next moment, income stops, bills are still coming, rent is due, responsibilities remain. And during all that stress, many workers forget something important. Even after losing a job, employees may still have rights. Now, important, The exact rights someone has can depend on the state, the type of job, the employment agreement, the reason for termination. But there are still important protections many Americans don't fully understand. And honestly, a lot of workers accidentally hurt their own situation because they panic immediately after being fired. So let's talk about some of the rights employees may have after losing a job. One of the first things many workers ask is, can my employer refuse to pay me? And in many situations, employers are still legally required to pay workers for time they already worked. That includes unpaid wages, earned salary, overtime in some situations, commissions depending on agreements. Now, the timing of final paychecks can vary depending on the state. Some states require payment immediately. Others allow employers more time. But generally, a company usually cannot simply refuse to pay someone for work already completed. Now, another thing many people immediately worry about is health insurance, especially in America where medical costs can become extremely expensive. Some workers suddenly realize, wait, what happens to my healthcare now? And honestly, that fear becomes very real for people with children, medical conditions, ongoing treatments, prescriptions. Now, depending on the situation, some former employees may temporarily continue health coverage through programs connected to federal law. But coverage often becomes expensive, and this is one reason job loss becomes emotionally stressful so quickly. Now, let's talk about unemployment benefits, because many people misunderstand how this works. Some workers believe, if I got fired, I automatically can't get unemployment. But that's not always true.